All right. I'm going to call this meeting to order, confirming that we have quorum. First, we are going to do our interpretation check-in. For those of you that are requiring or would enjoy interpretation service, please do so by clicking the globe-shaped icon at the bottom of your screen. Tonight, we are providing online interpretation, and we're going to pause in this moment to allow interpreters to give instructions in each language. Elsa?
Yes, at this moment, for interpreters, you can give the instructions in your own rooms, and we're going to leave the space for the ASL interpretation to give us their introduction.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to the first Seattle Redistricting Public Forum for District 5. Today is June 16th, 2022, and this is a meeting of the City of Seattle's Redistricting Commission conducting a public forum focused on District 5. The commission is comprised of appointed members of the public and is responsible for overseeing the development of new city council district lines in response to the completed 2020 census. Meeting materials, minutes, and additional information are found at seattle.gov/redistricting. This meeting is scheduled from now until 7:30 p.m. and we are eager to hear your hopes, dreams, aspirations, and feedback for the new city council districts that we have been charged to create. Now we would like to acknowledge that we are on ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Duwamish, Suquamish, Stillaguamish, and Muckleshoot tribes, people that are still here and continue to honor their heritage. As you can see, today's meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format. There are folks joining us in person as well as online, and to follow the recent amendment by Governor Inslee of the Open Public Meetings Act, and to increase the accessibility of and participation in public meetings, this meeting is online and in person at the Lake City branch of the Seattle Public Library, located at 12501 28th Avenue Northeast, Seattle, Washington, 98125. So at this time, I'd like to ask our commissioners to approve the agenda for the day and approve the outreach materials to be used for public outreach.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? They are adopted. Thank you so much. So at this time, staff, if you are able, please share the slide deck. And we will introduce ourselves one by one. So my name is Eliseo. I go by EJ, and I'm the chair of the commission at this time. That's a role that is shared by all of us in increments of 2 to 3 months. It is a privilege that all of us will enjoy. I was appointed by the city council to serve on this body, and I am honored to introduce my fellow commissioners. We'll start with Commissioner Malaba.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair. I am happy today. We are in my district. I am Patience Malaba. My pronouns are she, her. For my day job, I serve as Executive Director at the Housing Development Consortium.
Thank you very much. Next up, Commissioner Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us and engaging in this important but somewhat under the radar process. My name is Greg Nichols. I am from West Seattle, that is to say District 1, and I was appointed by former Mayor Jenny Durkin to the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Nichols. Commissioner O'Sullivan.
Hello, my name is Rory O'Sullivan. I have lived in Central Seattle and currently live in Southeast Seattle in District 2. I was appointed by the City Council, and in my day job, I am a partner at Washington Employment Benefits Advocates. Look forward to hearing everybody's comments.
Thank you so much. And now Commissioner Shaw.
Hi, everybody. I'm Commissioner Nalima Shah. During the day, my day job, I guess I work at the Seattle-based Bullet Foundation, and I live in District 4, so just a little bit south of the district we're talking about today. And I was appointed by our former mayor as well.
Thank you so much. So now, just to go over our agenda for today's proceedings, We've done our call to order. We've done a little bit of introductions. We're going to have a brief overview of this process from one of our colleagues, Commissioner Malaba, who will be going through a slide deck and explaining what we're up to and the points of public interest. Then we'll have a presentation on our interactive mapping tool by our district consultants, or excuse me, our district mapping consultants. Then we will move to where the bulk of the meeting occurs, and that is our public comment period. That's scheduled for about an hour and a half, but we will go until there are no people left who wish to give comments this evening, and then we will adjourn. So thank you for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate it. So now I'd like to remind folks that the public comment period, we will go in order as we have in all of our meetings by those who have signed up online first, and then transition to those who wish to make comments who are here in the meeting. Now I'll hand it off to my colleague, Commissioner Malaba, who will be giving you that short presentation and overview of our process. Commissioner Malaba.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair, and thank you all for being here today. Really glad to be in District 5. I know many of you have competing demands, but you have chosen this evening to dedicate time and engage in an important process that is going to guide our city's elections over the next decade. So on behalf of all of our neighbors, our kiddos and future generations, let me thank you and express my gratitude for your participation here tonight. I also would be remiss not to congratulate you all, Seattle, on being chosen as the 2026 World Cup site, which I have very limited knowledge about, but we'll celebrate with all of you. Next slide, please. So historically, Seattle has had a 9-member city council that until fairly recently, all of them were elected at large. A new system was legally established in 2013 when voters adopted an amendment to the city charter and established the current city's system of district elections. Voters elect 9 council members, 7 of them represent single-member districts, and 2 of them represent the entire city. The charter amendment divided the city into 7 districts with nearly equal populations, and many of you know that has changed significantly over the last decade. The charter amendment also called for a redistricting commission to be formed after each census to determine a revised districting plan based on 1 person, 1 vote. Next slide, please. So by January of 2023, the city must have new district lines, which is of course why we're here today. The 2 at-large seats were voted upon last year. Some of you will recall it was quite a competitive election. And then in November of 2023, the 7 city council districts will be up for elections, and voters will decide on who will represent them. And as they do, they will be deciding based on new district boundaries that would have come out of this process. Next slide, please. So every 10 years after the US Census, districts are redrawn at many levels of government, from local level, state, and federal, to make sure that lawmakers are representing the same number of people. In Seattle, the Redistricting Commission is going to be charged with the responsibility to redraw the lines and make sure that each district has about the same number of people. And that is to ensure that we are all equally represented. Next slide, please. Based on the city charter, district boundaries are to be drawn under specific rules. So we are to do this work in accordance with applicable federal, state and local laws, including some that are highlighted here, but really not exhaustive. But I want to go through some of the must-do areas and then talk about some of the areas that we are to consider where practical. First, we must be sure to produce compact and contiguous districts that are not gerrymandered. We are also to have approximately the same population for the districts. So the largest district and the smallest district are not to have a difference that is more than 1% overall. The city boundaries as they are being drawn are not to consider anyone's residency, whether it is the commissioners sitting on this commission or the GIS consultant or staff or elected officials. We're not to consider the residency of any person in this process. And then to the extent that is practical, the new boundaries are to follow the existing boundaries. They are to follow waterways and geographic boundaries. They're also to consider Seattle communities and neighborhoods as well. Now I want to talk a little bit about the commission structure and our responsibility. As directed by the Seattle Charter, the redistricting process requires that we have this 5-member commission. And these are the folks who have been working with the most recent decennial census data, a set of rules, technical mapping expertise, and your public input in working to create the city council district maps. The commission consists of 5 members. I think you had them at introduction. Commissioner Juarez, who was appointed by City Council, as well as Commissioner O'Sullivan, appointed by the council. And then 2 commissioners were also appointed by the mayor, and in this case, former Mayor Jenny Duncan. So Commissioner Nichols, as well as Commissioner Shah. And the 5th commissioner, who is voted into the commission by a majority vote of the commission, and that is myself, appointed by the commission. And this commission has been at work since the end of last year, November of 2021, and we will be at this until our mandate ends on November 2022. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of some of our responsibilities or some of the areas of work that we've done so far. After starting our meetings last year, we have appointed a district GIS expert. So we brought on board the King County GIS Center, who we selected under a competitive process at the end of last year. We have had all of our meetings open to the public. We are, of course, regulated by the OPMA, and all of our meetings are also recorded for you to follow up for any points of discussion that you would like to follow and would have missed. And then we've also, based on the charter requirement, followed up to have at least 1 public forum per district as required. We have, of course, extended that commitment and done some early outreach and engagement. A series of about 36 community information sessions were held earlier in the spring to really bring awareness of this process to the communities. And at this particular point, we are hosting these public forums across each district. Early in August, we will be developing and releasing a draft district plan proposal that's going to really be the formal proposal from this commission. And then we'll continue to take public comment and work towards approving final districts by majority vote and file with the state. And I'll go over some specific timeline details in a few minutes. In terms of timeline, as I mentioned, at the end of last year, October 2021, we were really getting formed and getting established as the first redistricting commission and getting legal to support us in the process in setting ourselves up. And between February and May, we have been conducting education opportunities with the community, setting up events with some community-based organizations to really bring awareness of this process to all of you. And then between May and July, we continue to hold these public forums in each district. with 4 map draft examples. And I want to emphasize that the maps that we have seen are draft examples that are conversation starters, and we will have a more formal proposal that will come the first week of August after the commissioners have reconvened at a retreat where we'll create and publish our first draft. And then between August and September 15th, we will be soliciting public comment on that draft. September 15th to 11th, we'll be working towards our final map. In October, we'll hold our final public meeting. And then in November, we will file our map on time before the end of the month. Next slide, please. So now we're going to go over some data and maps. And I want to emphasize that the data that the commission is using is based on the 2020 census. Next slide, please, for some review of the data. So looking at the decennial census figures that we've seen so far, for the last 4 decades, you can see that Seattle grew rapidly between 2010 and 2020. In fact, if you look at the last 4 decades here from 1990 going to 2020, you'll realize that in 2010 to 2020 timeline, we just really jump up to 21%. So that was twice the rate of growth that we saw in the last 2 decades prior to that. And this was faster than King County's overall growth rate. So Seattle continues to be on the front line in terms of the growth of population so far. Next slide, please. So here's a visual of where the growth of population actually occurred, and we'll have a more detailed overview in the next few slides on the specific details of where that growth is being concentrated. Next slide, please. So here's a map of growth rates in Seattle with the current district boundaries as an overlay that you will see here. So Council District, starting off with Council District 7, had by far the fastest growing population of the council's districts. It's growing roughly as twice as the overall city population, as you will see in the percentage numbers displayed here. And a lot of that growth is really concentrated rapidly in the areas like South Lake Union, in areas like downtown Queen Anne and portions of West Hill, which also grows into District 3. And you will see that that growth expands really into the whole district, looking at from First Hill into Capitol Hill, as well as Jenkins Park, seeing some expanded and rapid growth in those areas. Areas where population was slower are districts that include, of course, this very district, District 5, but starting off with District 6, you will see that the number of residents grew slightly less quickly than citywide growth, despite some concentration of growth in the areas like Ballard. And then in District 1, which is the West Seattle side, there are some neighborhoods that also gained residents at a faster rate than the city, but some neighborhoods gained residents at an even slower rate, which included the only neighborhood, South Park, for which the census count was actually lower in 2020 than it was in 2010. And then District 5, none of our North Seattle neighborhoods populations actually grew faster than the city, so it's been relatively a slower pace of growth in District 5. District 2, which encompasses Southeast Seattle, where the only areas growing faster than the city were Columbia City and nearby neighborhoods, and Duwamish South downtown areas, which remain mostly in industrial areas, is where you will see some changes in terms of the decennial census data. Next slide, please. As that change has occurred over the years, our demographics as a city have also changed. And throughout the redistricting process, members of the public have particularly been interested in demographic data, which is why we are providing a snapshot that you see before you here. So this slide shows the growth in population of people of color in the city by percentage and also by number between 2010 and 2020. The shading that you see here, the green shading on the map, is still relative to overall population growth in the city. Neighborhoods that are shown in bright green and dark green are areas where the population of color increased more rapidly than did the overall population in the city as a whole. In Seattle as a whole, the decennial census indicates that the population of color increased by nearly 46%, which is more than double the overall population growth rate. The overall population growth rate is 21%, but the populations of color grew by 46%. But it's important to zero into those numbers to really see what pockets and where we are seeing that growth. And in the slide, the council districts are listed from one that has the fastest to the slowest growth in terms of the populations of color in our community. And District 7 by far had the fastest growth in terms of the people of color, followed by District 6 and District 4. And then in District 7, 6, and 4, those populations actually increased more than 3 times the rate of the overall population growth in the city. Looking at the other districts, we see that District 2 is the only district in which populations of color grew less quickly than the overall population of color. And I won't go into the details of the underlying reasons of some of those changes here, maybe more of a detail and projection of my perspectives of why there was such a scenario. But you can find detailed information about these numbers on our website under resources. 2020 census reports will give you all of the data directly. Next slide, please. So this slide here shows the redistricting work that needs to happen per district based on the criteria that each district must have the same population within 1%, which is 105,288 as a number. So given that, this data will actually show you, as you see here, the kind of work that needs to happen per district. So District 1, District 2, and District 1, 2, 5, and 6 are the ones that actually did not gain as much populations and need to expand. And then District 3, 4, and 7 gained population and do need to contract. And this is the work that is before us to get us to a place where we are really defining where those lines are and ensuring fair representation throughout the city. And we're looking forward to getting feedback from all of you on where those lines should be drawn. And the more specific that feedback is, the more helpful it is for us as we think through and collaborate on where those lines will ultimately be. At this point, I would like to invite and introduce in the next slide, Dennis Higgins, our GIS consultant, who is going to present the interactive mapping tool for all of you and help you understand how to engage in this process as technical as it can get. So Dennis, over to you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to all the commissioners. Welcome to everyone. I am Dennis Higgins. I am the GIS consultant to the Seattle Redistricting Commission, and I'm here to show you and share my screen with you on some tools that can help you participate in the process of redistricting the 7 city council districts. And so I'm sharing my screen. If I could get a thumbs up from one of the commissioners that you can see my screen. I'm hoping that you can see it. Was that a thumbs up, Commissioner Juarez?
We can
Great,
see it.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank
Okay, here we are on the Seattle Redistricting website. It's seattle.gov/redistricting. And one of the main tabs on the front page is how to participate. So that's the page I'm located on right now. Right down in the main body of the page, basically in the first paragraph, there is a link to example maps. Commissioner Malaba pointed out to you that there were 4 alternative maps that were generated as conversation starters. If you click the link right here, it will open for you a PDF document containing those 4 maps, and also containing a description, a textual description of each of the 7 districts under each of those 4 alternative plan maps. Now, I want to state, as Commissioner Malaba did, that these are alternatives that are meant for discussion only. They are not plans actively being considered by the commissioners at this point. Interesting spectrum of alternatives between plans 1 and plan 1 and plan 4. Let me just talk about plan 1 for the moment. What you're seeing on the screen then is plan 1. Plan 1, we gave the computer software the instruction to redraw the districts and achieve that 105,288 population, being as compact as possible and disregarding almost all other parameters, such as existing council district boundaries. And so you're seeing what the computer came up with here on plan 1. Alternatively, plan 4 was done by a human, with the instruction being to minimize changes to the districts as much as possible, to keep the current shape of the districts, but get to that 105,288 population with as few changes as possible. And so that's what you see here in plan 4. And plans 2 and 3 are basically points on the spectrum between plan 1, which is again computer driven, and plan 4, which was completely done by humans. And again, there's a textual description at the top of this PDF document for you to help you to understand what which neighborhoods are in each of the districts under each of the 4 alternative plans. And again, to get to that document, you come to the Seattle Redistricting website and you go to example maps, and that's the link right here. I'd now like to show you the interactive map that was shown on one of the slides, but I'm going to show it to you in real time. The Seattle Redistricting interactive map, if you go on that same page on how to participate, down to the section how to participate, there is a link that is titled Seattle Redistricting Interactive Map. By clicking this link, you'll be taken to this website right here. This is a website that we built for the commissioners and for the public to be able to look at all of the data that is going into the discussions that are going on. And so by default, when you first view it, you're seeing the current city council districts, but there are many, many layers that you can also turn on. I note that I brought my cursor up to the layers button right here, and this panel popped open. There are several, probably about going on 20 different layers that we can turn on, and we can pan and zoom around just like you would on Google or Bing Maps in order to take a look at some of the data that the commissioners are using in their discussions. Some of the key data sets that you're going to want to pay attention to. Again, by default, the current districts are turned on. The 4 plans that we're seeing on the PDF document are all located here, and you can turn them on or off as you see fit. And so you can see what those look like in comparison to the current city council districts. Some other important data that you'll find on here are the census blocks, block groups, and tracks. Now, the census data is key to this process, and census blocks are not visible when you're zoomed out because they're very detailed. They literally are blocks in many neighborhoods. And that's what we're seeing now. I've zoomed into the University Village area of North Seattle and turned on the census blocks. And in these green boundaries, you're now seeing the US Census data shown over the top of the map, along with a label. And the label is, you may have guessed it, the population of that particular census block. Other layers that are on here that may be of interest are some of the neighborhood, unofficial city clerk neighborhoods. These are, when the city is doing a mailing, I believe they utilize this to say, well, we want to mail to everybody in Wedgwood, or we want to mail to everybody in Victory Heights. And so these boundaries, though they don't carry an official tag, are often referred to in city day-to-day business, and you can view them here on the map. And I can tell you that the commissioners are also taking a close look at that particular layer. So again, this is the interactive mapping site available from the How to Participate page under Seattle Redistricting Interactive Map. That brings you to this site. And to get again to the layers, you click the layers button in the upper left bar. That will pop open this panel, and you can turn on and off many different layers. Let me now show you how you can, if you choose, draw your own map and submit it to the commission. Right here, further down on the same page, How to Participate, is a section called Draw Your Map. If you click this link right here, you will open a site called Dave's Redistricting. This site that you're looking at now is Dave's Redistricting. This is a community of interest around redistricting nationwide, but it also contains information related to this redistricting process because we gave it to them and they've loaded it onto their site. This site is a bit more complex than the other mapping site that I showed you. However, you can use this site to interactively redraw your own boundaries and create a plan that you can submit to the commissioners if you so choose. In order to learn how to do that, there are a couple tips. Back here on the main How to Participate page, there is a video linked from right here, and that takes you to a YouTube video where the city's own Elsa, who is on this meeting, will describe to you, walk you through on the video how to utilize the Dave's Redistricting website. Another option that you might want to choose is a step-by-step text-based description on how to use the website. If you are to click this link, it will take you to this PDF document, which will take you literally step-by-step through the process of opening your own plan in Dave's Redistricting and creating your own plan and submitting your own plan to the commission. So I will stop there. Just want to encourage you to participate in this process. There are many different ways to do so. And I know the commissioners are also very open to your feedback through this page. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis, and thank you, Commissioner Malaba. So now we're going to move on to hearing from the public. We're asking the public to let us know about your community, about how well the current council lines represent you in your community, and if you have specific suggestions for us to consider. This is your opportunity to be specific about where lines should be drawn, on what streets, following what boundaries, and what trade-offs you would deem acceptable. The more specific advice and guidance you give us, the better we can represent your hopes, dreams, and map aspirations when we deliberate later in the summer on our final considerations. So I'm going to dive into some instructions on how to give testimony. So thank you for your patience again as we hold this in a hybrid format. As you can imagine, there's going to be a little bit of tech as we go, but thanks for hanging with us. So during public comment, you may request to have our staff show your comment on a map. They will screen share their map as you give your testimony. The timer will be present. And as in past forums and in our regular business meetings, the process will be as follows. We will call out the names of the people who registered to submit comment first. Please be ready to present your comment in 2 minutes. You will be allowed to unmute when your name is called. Staff will have a timer on the screen. We will then move on to people who did not register ahead of time but would like to comment. If you wish to provide public comment, please raise your hand and the staff will allow you to unmute when you are called by the chair. To do so, click the participants button that sits at the bottom right corner of the window. Click on the hand icon that sits at the bottom of the next menu next to the share function. Click raise hand in the webinar controls. The host will be notified that you've raised your hand. For those of us joining tonight via mobile app, click the participants button that sits at the top right corner of the window. Click raised hand that sits at the bottom right corner of the participants list. And for those of you that are calling in via phone, please press *3 to raise your hand. All right, I think those instructions are going to be drilled into my brain for maybe the rest of my life. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and get started. And we're going to start with those signed up ahead of time. Katie Stoltz. Katie Stoltz. All right. Next up is Andrew Hong. Andrew, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Mine's pretty quick today, but yeah, my name is Andrew Hong. I'm the statewide coordinator of the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition and the Redistricting Justice for, I'm a co-lead organizer on the Redistricting Justice for Seattle Coalition. We're a coalition of community organizations in the city of Seattle fighting for fair and equitable district lines in this process, particularly for disenfranchised communities and communities of color. We in District 5, our priorities remain the same as kind of our citywide district priorities. We really hope to see that the commission does not split communities of color, particularly those in the Northgate area, especially around Aurora Avenue, apart into different districts, and to really keep those communities of color together in a single district to preserve the BIPOC voting power in the north end of the city. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much, Andrew. All right, next we're going to go to folks. That is the full list from those who signed up ahead of time. We're going to go ahead and move to those that are raising their hand now or in the room. So we have Lee Bruch. Lee. Lee, if you're able, go ahead and take yourself off mute and we'll start the timer when you begin speaking. All right, Lee, we will come back to you if you're having technical issues. If you're speaking, there you are.
Yeah, I don't have a comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving to others, is there anyone who would like to give public testimony at this time to the commission? All right, we have 3 folks signed up in person. Elsa, go ahead and have the first person step on up.
Yes, hold on just a second. Sarah, do you want to go first? Just give us a second while we do our organizing here.
Sure.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
I'm Sarah Jane Siegfried. I've lived in Lake City for about 25 years and seen it go from being maybe a quarter people of color to over half people of color in Lake City right now. I'm particularly concerned that you retain as closely as possible the present boundaries of District 5. I know that's a may do and not a must do. But to us, it's a must do because District 5 is closely aligned with the 85th Street Annex boundary going back to the 1940s, 50s. And that's the area that doesn't have sidewalks, except on some very major rare streets. So every time a candidate comes to talk to us, we say, and what are you going to do about sidewalks? And they say, and the Move Seattle 9-year plan has identifies 11,200 block fronts lacking sidewalks in Seattle. 60% of them are in North Seattle, and it only funded 250 of them. So the current plan is we have a 400-year plan for equity in sidewalks. And this has to do with ADA accessibility. It has to do with strollers. It has to do with getting off the bus at 5 o'clock and having to walk down the middle of the street. It's dangerous. So we need to represent this as much as possible in North Seattle. Our second concern is the Lake City Community Center, which never was adopted as part of the actual Parks District. And now it's up for reconstruction, but the last mayor put it on hold or slow. And so we're hoping to build housing over our community center and to get the attention it deserves to get rebuilt. So in order for us to represent those, we need to retain, the area north of 85th and then as much south of 85th as is needed to balance the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Jane.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Nichols.
Sarah Jane, would you be open to a question? Or has she escaped?
Looks like she's still in the room. Sarah Jane, can you hear us?
Hold on a second. Let's just get back to, I think they have a question for you. Ma'am, let me see if they can say it again. Commissioner Nichols, can you repeat your question?
Yes, I haven't actually stated it yet. So Sarah Jane, my question is, District 5, like District 1 and 2, has to pick up a substantial population. It's grown more slowly than the rest of the city. So it needs to pick up about 6,000 voters from other districts. Do you sense that there's a feeling in the community where that should come to best make the community whole?
What I'm suggesting is that it simply move south generally in a horizontal line.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Sarah Jane.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
You should be unmuted.
Can you turn the sound back?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. My first question, when you put out the final map, are you going to put out a digital version so we could look at it and make some digital calculations? Secondly, it looks like if you look at the way the system's got to grow, you really can't pay attention to where the waterways are, except for, say, the LA Bay and Lake Washington. You're going to be forced to cross the lake boundaries as you go from north to south and as you expand District 1. So if you have any comments on that, if I'm wrong in that assumption.
Speaker, can you move the microphone closer to your mouth? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
See the other people that are making maps. I'm still having trouble characterizing what the various communities are that you're trying to keep whole, what they're actually made of, and where the boundaries are. If you had other maps available to me and other people, you might be able to make some inferences about what the general consensus is on what sort of communities are sort of critical. Also, you are updating the system boundaries here. It would also be worthwhile if you could update the precinct every 10 years. Now, they could do some upgrades. Some have 0 people in, some have a lot of people. It would be useful to upgrade those as well. So you might put those on your to-do list you're going to have for the next set of people. Thanks.
Just to clarify before you walk away, the first part of your So there was just some clarity on the first request there. Will we make digital maps available? Maybe my colleagues caught it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the maps will be made available digitally, and we will also have hard copies available. Staff will absolutely be posting those online on our website, and then for the in-person meetings that we hold, those will also be available.
And if I caught the comment correctly, the commenter had a question or a suggestion about updating precinct boundaries, but I believe that that's not within our purview or jurisdiction. I believe the King County Elections Office is the entity that draws or redraws precinct boundaries.
All right, other public comment. Is there anyone else at this time that would like to give testimony or has questions of the commission? All right, I'll do one more call. Is there anyone at this time who would like to give testimony, feedback, complaints, kudos, general inquiries? We're taking it all right now. All right, well, at this time, we're going to go ahead and close public comment, seeing that there's no one. Oh, we have Lee. Lee, if you wish to give testimony at this time, go ahead and take yourself off mute, and we'll begin the timer when you start speaking.
Yeah, I also, like one of the other people, believe that the closer we can keep it to District 5's existing boundaries, the better. If we need to increase it, the one place we would recommend is where on the western end there's a big dip. There are the big peninsula that where District 6 goes up north, and it would be nice if that whole area, which is essentially the Greenwood area, 85th and Greenwood, if that were all consistently part of District 5. It's very similar to the rest of District 5.
Great, thank you so much, Lee. All right, I will do one final call for testimony. Is there anyone who would like to give any additional testimony at this time before we close this off? All right, seeing, hearing, and feeling no movement in the room, I'm going to close public comment at this time. Thank you for your participation, everyone. So there appears to be no comments. So fellow commissioners, do you have any comments to make at this time before we wrap? All right, Commissioner Malava?
Well, just a comment to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We really appreciate your input. I know it's a lot more harder without a formal proposal to respond or provide more specific feedback, but I think we got quite some good points earlier from a number of speakers. So thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you so much. Other commissioners before we wrap? All right, seeing none. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us. We know you have family, friends, and work and other obligations commuting for your time, and we appreciate your dedication to making Seattle Council districts as fair and representative as possible. Your participation tonight is important, and we take your suggestions seriously. Thank you, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.